to hang out as a kid, the first 2 floors were given over to the shop. A rabbit warren of narrow corridors and poky rooms, every wall and table covered in books. The previous owner, a kindly blind old man named Mr. Simpson, lived on the remaining 2 floors. But, for all I knew, the new owner used that space as an opium den or a meat smoker. At least the flaccid British sun peeked through the grey clouds, which meant I could make out these finer details of the facade. The buildings on either side of it were cloaked in the creeping black shadow that now followed me everywhere. I squinted at the chalkboard sign on the street, hoping for some clue as to the new owner's personality, but all it had on it were some wonky lines that looked like chickens' feet. This place is even more drab than I remember. It could use a little TLC. That makes 2 of us. I squinted at my reflection in the darkened shop window, but I could barely make out the basic shape of my body. At least I knew I looked fierce when I left the house, in my Vivian Westwood pleated skirt, scored on eBay for 25 quid, vintage ruffled shirt, men's cravat from a weird goth shop at Camden Market, and my old school blazer with an enamel pin on the collar that read, "Jane Austen is my home girl." Combined with my favourite docs and a pair of thick-framed glasses, I'd nailed the boss bitch librarian look. That is, if you ignored the fact that I pushed my nose up against the glass to see my reflection and twisted my head in order to see all the details of my outfit because of the creeping darkness in the corners of my eyes. Please, Isis and Astarte and any other goddesses listening, let me get this job. I can't deal with any more rejection. I smoothed my hair, sucked in a breath, pushed open the creaking shop door, and stepped back in time. As the shop bell tinkled and the smell of musty paper filled my nostrils, I became a 9-year-old again. The weird outcast kid whose mother was banned from school events after swindling the chair of the PTA with a Forex trading mastermind program, which was really just a CD-ROM of my mother comparing currency trading to doing the laundry. It was his own fault for getting swindled. Who even uses CDs anymore? As soon as the school bell rang, I'd sprint into town, duck through this same door and escape into another world. I'd curl up in the cracking leather armchair in the World History Room with a huge stack of books and read until my mother finished her shift and came to collect me. Books became my friends. Characters like Jane Eyre and Dorian Gray, the perfect substitutes for the kids who were horrible to me. When I was older and the guys at school sneered at me and fawned over my best friend, I fell into books again. This time, to fall in love with the bad boys. The intelligent boys, the boys filled with anger and lust and pain. Dark horses and anti-heroes like Heathcliff and Sherlock Holmes, and melancholy authors like Edgar Allan Poe spoke directly to my soul. Mr. Simpson barely said a word to me, but he never seemed to mind the fact that I read every book in the shop but couldn't afford to buy any. Sometimes he'd even let me rifle through the boxes of rejects before he sent them away for recycling. People would come into the store and try to sell Mr. Simpson stacks of airport books, James Patterson and John Grisham paperbacks that no one buys second-hand. When he refused their generous bounty, they'd creep back at night and shove the volumes one by one through the mail slot, so Mr. Simpson always had stacks of them lying around. I would smuggle the books home to our housing estate. If Mum caught me reading, she'd lecture about how men didn't like smart girls and we'd have a big row, and read them under the covers at night, or hidden in my textbooks during class. It was in Nevermore Bookshop where I first discovered punk music. I found a box of battered 1970s zines in the popular music section